Morning lay low over the O course, a damp gray skin on wooden rope. Cadets jogged in clusters, steam rising from mouths and sleeves. Cadet Ethan Brooks broke from the pack and shoulder-checked an older woman in sterile Navy utilities with no visible rank. Laughter rippled as Sergeant First Class Tom Miller watched and then turned his eyes back to the stopwatch. She did not step back. Boots planted shoulder width, knees soft, hips stacked over arches. She held still and swept the yard with an analytical gaze that treated the weaver like a timed puzzle. The snickers thinned when nothing dramatic happened. Only the quiet math of someone who knew where breath belonged and how to spend it. Up on the ridge, Lieutenant General Marcus Hale studied her through Steiner 10x50 binoculars. He noted balance, micro shifts, an economy of motion that belonged to long practice, not luck. A name surfaced in memory with a rank to match. A possible Chief Warrant Officer 5. He had seen work in the shadows of joint training. He lowered the glass and said nothing to the cadre. Down below, Brooks flexed for the crowd, unaware that the minutes would flip the pecking order in view. Stay with me, because a salute is about to change this campus and his life. The O course runs across a muddy field in squared lanes. Each lane, a chain of tests. Cadets face low walls, cargo nets, rope climbs, low crawls, balance beams, and the weaver that sits near the end like a quiet dare. The final push is a tall wall with a rope descent onto a small landing square. Times are posted by lane, and the yard moves with the cadence of commands and stopwatches. The event is an Army-run joint service capstone. So Army terminology sets the rhythm, while guests may wear other branch uniforms. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller serves as cadre instructor on the ground, calling runners and tracking standards. Cadets render courtesies to officers and NCOs, and they follow range-style safety habits as they queue and clear lanes. A Department of Defense visitor in sterile Navy utilities with no visible rank is authorized to observe without drawing attention or bias. She looks older than the average cadet and stands like someone who knows how to spend energy. Her boots sit solid, her breath is quiet, and her eyes move in short, precise sweeps that measure angles and surfaces. Nothing on her blouse says who she is. Yet, her calm suggests years around Naval Special Warfare training problems. The way she studies the weaver hints at deep familiarity with support and coaching assignments that have shaped elite units. But nothing is stated aloud. Cadet Ethan Brooks owns the morning on reputation and volume, treating leadership as the loudest voice and fastest sprint. Sergeant First Class Miller respects output that stops a clock and watches Brooks with approval. From a distant rise, Lieutenant General Marcus Hale observes without a word, letting the cadre run the lane. The weaver sits between Brooks and the final wall like a siphon, and everyone who has failed it knows the rule that efficiency beats force long before the rope ever burns a glove. Brooks drifts close and lets his shoulder brush her with a little extra weight. Snickers skate across the formation as Sergeant First Class Tom Miller keeps his eyes on the lane board. The contact is small, but it is meant to rank people without saying a word. The morning feels colder for a beat. She plants both boots and does not give an inch. Knees stay soft. Heels kiss the ground. Hips centered over her arches like a plumb line. The bump travels through her frame and disappears as if it hit bedrock. She answers with a steady look that measures distance, posture, and intent. Her eyes move to the O course like an engineer reading a diagram. She notes frayed spots on rope sleeves, dew slick on beam grips, and the way the weaver changes angles just when rhythm builds. In her head, gravity is not the enemy, but a tool that can load a swing and carry a pivot. She maps a line that spends as little breath as possible. Up on the ridge, Lieutenant General Marcus Hale lowers Steiner 10x50 binoculars and exhales. He has seen this balance and quiet breathing before, the small corrections that mark long years of work. A senior warrant pedigree flickers in his mind without a name and without a unit. He says nothing and keeps watching. Brooks basks in his own noise while she keeps her analysis private. One tries to win the yard with volume. The other, with math and timing. The onlookers do not understand her language yet. The next few minutes will translate it for everyone. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller checks the lane and calls Cadet Ethan Brooks onto the O course. Brooks explodes off the line and hits the Weaver with speed and noise, grabbing the first beam like he wants to break it. He overgrips and his forearms pump out early. Then his hips drift behind his hands and he swings like a pendulum. Boots bicycle against damp wood and the rhythm turns jerky. He rushes angle changes and wastes motion at every transition. Breath comes ragged and out of sync with effort. So oxygen management falls apart and small slips multiply. He fights gravity instead of shaping it, pausing at bad moments and surging at the wrong ones. The Weaver punishes every mistake and taxes his grip with each reach. The correct method sits there like a road he refuses to take. 3-point contact would steady him. Hips close to the beam would shorten the lever, and small controlled swings would preload each move. An exhale on effort would keep timing honest and keep panic out of his hands. He ignores all of it and muscles through on will. He rolls onto the far platform and drops to a knee, chest heaving and eyes glassy. The watch in Miller's hand shows a passing time, but everyone can see the price he paid before the final wall and rope descent. Cadets who were loud a minute ago fall quiet as they connect noise to waste and waste to fatigue. Raw power will not be enough for what comes next. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller lifts his hand and calls the next runner. The older woman steps forward in sterile Navy utilities with no visible rank. An evaluator look that keeps bias off the lane. She does not hurry. She reads wood grain and rope fibers the way a medic reads a chart. She pauses at the entry to the Weaver and sets her feet. 3-point contact is her rule. One hand and one foot moving while the others anchor. Hips stay close to the beam to shorten the lever and kill the swing. Breath runs in a loop. Inhale to set. Exhale to move. Hands land as palm shelves with fingertip locks that grip without crushing. Micro swings preload each angle change so she arrives at the next hold instead of searching. She matches timing to the beam and keeps elbows low to spare forearms. The cadence looks almost slow because there are no stalls. She clears the midsection and rolls her hips to absorb force on the far platform. Knees flex, ankles align, and energy settles inside the joints. Miller watches the time while cadets lean forward and stop bragging. On the ridge, Lieutenant General Marcus Hale keeps the glass steady and notes how little air she spends. She lines up for the final wall with the same measured calm. The plan is clean. Foot drive to the first lip. Chest close. Hip to wall for friction and control. Her eyes mark the rope on the far side and return to the hand placement she will use. She holds position on the platform and lets one breath fall into the next. No one talks. The lane holds a soft hush that feels heavier than shouting. What they see is economy made visible. She settles into a low, ready crouch on the platform, balanced and calm, while the stopwatch ticks and every face stays still. She steps off the far platform toward the last 30-foot wall, while Sergeant First Class Tom Miller watches the stopwatch and the cadets hold their breath. Her first move is clean and simple. She drives a foot to the opening lip, keeps her hips close to the surface, posts a hand, and locks a leg for friction. The wall gives nothing, but she wastes nothing. She tops out with controlled 3-point contact instead of a scramble. One hand anchors while the opposite foot and knee seal the position, and her center stays over support. She settles the other hand, brings the trailing leg across the edge, and clears the crest without a thud. Everything is quiet except for breath that stays even. She shifts to the rope and sets a feet friction wrap that does the real braking. The wrap is an S-style clamp that lets the rope and boots manage speed, while the hands guide, not crush. Gloved palms ride light. Braking is modulated, and her eyes stay up on the landing square, so there is no drift and no freefall. The descent looks smooth because it is planned. She touches down on the 4x4 target with knees slightly flexed and joints stacked, so force runs through the chain instead of into the ground. She rises balanced and calm, while the stopwatch shows a clean time that beats the posted record without a shouted number. On the ridge, Lieutenant General Marcus Hale lowers the glass and keeps his thoughts to himself. Cadet Ethan Brooks absorbs what efficiency just did to his certainty. And the yard stays silent, because the quiet is the loudest thing on the field, and everyone knows the standard just changed. A jeep rolls onto the Army run-o course, and the engine note settles as flags lift in the breeze. Cadets snap to attention in crisp lines while Sergeant First Class Tom Miller steps forward and renders a proper salute. Lieutenant General Marcus Hale returns it with economy, then moves toward the far platform where the older woman stands. Gravel crunches under his boots as the yard falls into a deep quiet. Hale stops about 5 feet from her and lets the space speak for him. His eyes are on her posture rather than the crowd, reading how her weight sits over her arches and how still her hands are at her sides. The formation holds its breath, sensing something precise and personal in the way he studies her. Miller lowers his arm and keeps the lane clear. Both wear simple paracord bracelets, faded green and black, the kind saved from a hard trip rather than bought for show. Hale lifts his cuff and taps his bracelet once, not for the crowd but for the one person who would notice. It is a small signal, a memory without words, and it vanishes as quickly as it appeared. A few instructors register the gesture and say nothing. The visitor's blouse shows no name or rank. Sterile Navy utilities authorized for evaluator duties, which explains why some cadets misread her earlier. Hale acknowledges the formation with a short nod and does not rush the silence. The field seems to draw tighter around the two of them, protocol satisfied and a quieter bond marked. What comes next will carry more weight than rank alone. Lieutenant General Marcus Hale steps forward and addresses the formation with the easy cadence of someone who has done this for a lifetime. He identifies the visitor as Chief Warrant Officer 5 Grace Collins, United States Navy. The title lands with precision and the field seems to tighten around the platform. Cadets straighten as if the rank itself rearranged the air. Hale states that she is present as a Department of Defense senior consultant for the new asymmetric warfare curriculum at this joint service capstone. The role explains the sterile Navy utilities and the absence of visible rank. It also explains why she watched instead of performing until called. The yard now understands why she moved like a teacher who knows the answer and waits for the class to catch up. Her background is set out in measured lines that do not oversell or wander into classification. She has over 2 decades in Naval Special Warfare in senior technical and operational advisory roles. Her career includes extended support and training assignments to the Naval Special Warfare Development Group. Nothing suggests she is a SEAL operator, and the point is expertise, not myth. Hale lists her decorations with clean phrasing that needs no gloss. Silver Star. 2 Bronze Star medals with V device. Purple Heart. The facts are complete without any story added to them. He adds that 15 years earlier, during a joint training event, she set the baseline on this very course under a different name. If posted, records forgot. Leadership did not. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller hears this and feels the inversion settle in his chest. The cadets feel it too, as the earlier assumptions slide off like mud. Cadet Ethan Brooks stays in frame as his certainty drains away. The person he mocked just executed a master class, and the mark of it now sits above his best effort. He looks at the weaver and then at the rope and knows he fought the wrong fight. The crowd remains quiet because silence is the only language that fits. Hale closes with a tone that settles the yard. Rank explains the address, but it does not explain the respect on the faces around him. That comes from the lifetime of competence they just witnessed. Everyone hears the lesson without hearing a single word more. The formation holds steady as Lieutenant General Marcus Hale raises his right hand in a deliberate salute to Chief Warrant Officer 5 Grace Collins. Narration sets the frame that in, you, as go. Military custom juniors normally salute first, and seniors return the salute. And that a senior initiating the exchange is unusual but permissible as a personal mark of respect. The yard seems to narrow around the two of them, and the sound of wind over canvas replaces every whisper. Protocol is not broken. It is being used to say something precise. Collins answers with a crisp return that lands cleanly and ends cleanly. Her acknowledgement is simple and professional, the kind learned over years of doing the work. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller tracks the sequence with the eye of a trainer and finds nothing out of order. The moment breathes without speeches because posture, timing, and silence carry the message better than words. Cadet Ethan Brooks watches and understands that real authority is not loud and does not need to be explained. It stands on competence and on the respect that competence earns. The exception in who saluted first does not bend rules. It honors mastery and teaches everyone watching why the rule exists in the first place. The yard learns a rule and a reason at the same time. By late afternoon, the story moves faster than the wind through the quad. Barracks talk shifts from workouts to timestamps and how quiet the landing sounded. In the mess, the cadence of trays and boots carries the same two phrases. Collins' ladder for the weaver and wall. And the general's salute for the moment everyone felt but few can explain. Cadets pass it by whisper and by text with shaky photos of the lane board. Instructors keep faces neutral while routine runs on time. Cadre correct uniforms, inspect rooms, and log training like any other day. Culture changes from the ground up without a memo. Cadet Ethan Brooks feels the shift first. Tables that once waved him over now stay full while he walks on. The laughs that used to trail him are quiet in the halls. Silence replaces attention, and it lasts until his name appears on an appointment line. A runner directs him to a plain office where Lieutenant General Marcus Hale waits with a notebook and a clock. The lesson is not a speech. It is patient lines about ego as a liability, leadership as self-control and humility, and strength as what you build in someone else. Brooks leaves with a path instead of a punishment. By evening, the yard treats quiet competence like a standard, not a slogan. New cadets try Collins' ladder with more timing and less noise. The general's salute becomes a short story in orientation, told without embellishment. The campus carries a new rule in its daily rhythms, and Brooks takes his first real step toward becoming a leader others can trust. Morning light spreads over the KD range as Cadet Ethan Brooks steps to a firing lane. A target carrier waits with a 300-meter E-type silhouette. Range safety checks run in order while a line of brass from earlier strings glints near the berm. Chief Warrant Officer 5 Grace Collins stands off his right shoulder with a clipboard and a quiet nod that means begin. The lane issues ready-up calls and the line comes to the shoulder. Brooks mounts an M4A, 1 carbine, chambered in 5.56 by 45 mm with an M150 RCO optic and a zeroed battle sight. He presses off 3 rounds fast. The group prints wide because his stance is too long. His grip crushes the pistol grip, and his breathing fights the trigger. Collins keeps the coaching plain and technical. Narrow the stance by a few inches and settle weight slightly forward over the balls of the feet. Ease the firing hand to firm but not crushing, and pull the stock into a repeatable cheek weld so the reticle stays centered and stable. Inhale, exhale. Find the natural pause. Then press straight to the rear without slapping. He resets on safe and breathes while the lane cools. On the next string, he sets the selector to fire with purpose, then settles the RCO and lets his shoulders drop. The trigger press is smooth and the break is a surprise. The shot tracks clean through the tube as the carbine recoils straight back. A bright case flips out of the ejection port and arcs to the right. The silhouette shows a center mass hit at 300 meters with no luck involved. He rides the sights for a moment, eases to reset, and follows through. Selector goes safe. Muzzle stays downrange. Eyes scan, and breath returns to normal. Collins gives a small nod and steps off the line. Her role stays quiet and instructional. Nothing theatrical, only process. Brooks feels the lesson settle in his hands where noise used to live. Real authority taught without a speech and technique turned a scatter into a point of aim. Over the next months, the academy grows quieter in the best way. Loud posturing fades as cadets learn to measure themselves by clean reps, clean times, and clean corrections. Collins' ladder becomes a rite that signals readiness rather than swagger. Upperclassmen teach a short segment in orientation about the general's salute without flair. Just the facts and what it means. Cadre keeps standards the same and inspections on time. Nothing changes by memo. Everything shifts because peers model what right looks like, and others copy it. The yard now rewards steadiness more than volume. Cadet Ethan Brooks learns to lead by coaching. He shows up early, sets lanes, and leaves last after policing brass. He talks less and watches more, then nudges form a degree at a time. His squad begins to hit marks because process takes the lead. One late afternoon, the rifle line hums under a pale sky. A smaller female cadet struggles with an M4A, one wearing an M150 RCO at a sane distance on an E-type silhouette. A few peers snicker behind her and trade looks. Brooks ignores them and steps to the shooter with calm cues. He trims her stance a touch and shifts weight forward over the balls of the feet. He eases her firing grip from crush to firm and resets her stock weld so the reticle sits centered and steady. He coaches a simple breath in, a breath out, and the pause. He reminds her to press straight back and ride the reset. The next round rings on steel and the line goes still for a second. Brooks moves on without grandstanding and checks the next lane. The hecklers run short on material and drift away. Respect grows because results show up, not because anyone demands it. In the barracks and the mess, the talk changes shape. Cadets trade notes on who can teach a clean rope wrap, who can pace the weaver without stalls, and who can settle a wobble at the sights. Names rise for competence, not noise. The campus settles into a new creed where quiet work sets the pace, and Brooks becomes the kind of leader others trust. They keep 3 anchors and let the noise fall away. The first is simple paracord on 2 wrists, faded green and black, saved from hard days and harder miles. It means shared hardship, not secret code, and it reminds them that quiet bonds hold strongest. Cadets glance at those bands and remember that experience does not need labels to carry weight. The second anchor lives in the weaver. Angles teach patience. Timing teaches breath. And economy teaches restraint that carries into rucks, field problems, and daily discipline. The obstacle punishes waste and rewards those who spend energy like it matters. Cadets learn to arrive at holds instead of searching, and they take that habit into everything they touch. The third anchor is a single salute that a senior officer chose to start. Everyone knows juniors salute first and seniors return it. Yet the exception stood as a clean act of respect for earned mastery. It did not bend rules. It showed why the rule exists and who deserves the honor of a returned hand. They will forget the stopwatch numbers posted on a board. They will remember the silence that settled after her landing and how it rewrote what counts as strength. They will remember that Chief Warrant Officer 5 Grace Collins stood still when it mattered and then moved with purpose when it counted. They will remember that respect follows competence and service. What lasts is a way of moving and a way of seeing. Legacy is not a speech or a banner. Legacy is habits, posture, and the small choices to build someone else when no one is shouting. That is the creed the Academy keeps. If this story spoke to you, subscribe for more true-to-life moments where quiet professionalism outworks loud arrogance and where craft wins without noise. Share in the comments a time you were underestimated and chose skill over volume. And tell us what changed when you stuck to process instead of posturing. For those who value the details, we kept protocol tight from the correct use of Chief Warrant Officer 5 and a joint service course setting to proper rope descent technique, plus rifle range specifics with an M4A1, an M150 RCO, and a 300-meter E-type silhouette, so the scene stays grounded and real. Join a community built on standards rather than hype, and carry one last reminder with you that real authority comes from showing up, teaching well, and helping others perform when no one is watching. Use exact ranks on first mention and proper addressing thereafter. Chief Warrant Officer 5 Grace Collins may be addressed as Chief Warrant Officer Collins or Ma'am. Lieutenant General Marcus Hale may be addressed as General or Sir. Sergeant First Class Tom Miller is addressed as Sergeant Miller by cadets and staff. Uniforms and appearance are specific. Collins wears sterile Navy utilities with no visible rank or name tape to reflect evaluator status. Cadets wear PT or training kits appropriate to the O course. Hale appears in service uniform and uses Steiner 10x50 binoculars as plausible field optics. O course techniques must be correct. On the Weaver, maintain 3-point contact. Keep hips close to the beam. Use micro swings to preload transitions. And manage effort with controlled breathing. Wall top out uses foot drive to the lip, hand post, leg hook, center over support, and a quiet crest. Rope descent employs a feet friction wrap such as an S-wrap or clamp, guided by the hands, with knees flexed for a soft landing. Range details are precise. Use an M4A1 and 5. 56 by 45 mm with an M150 RCO, firing on a 300-meter E-type silhouette. Run safety checks. Ready up calls. Straight back, trigger press. Reset. Follow through. Scan. And selector on safe. Salute protocol is that juniors salute first and seniors return. A senior initiating the salute is an intentional mark of respect. DEVGRU references appear only as support and training assignments within Naval Special Warfare, never labeling her a SEAL operator or implying classified specifics.